Good afternoon. Imagine my surprise when I thought I was doing a breakout session with maybe 20 to 30 people, and I walk into this room and see all of you. But I think it's great. I'm really excited that this many people are here to learn a little bit about cross-channel marketing. One thing I must say, though, is that music that you just heard is not reflective of the Adobe brand. I don't think in any way. I could be wrong. I don't think it's good music either that's conducive to an afternoon session. So hopefully between my session and the one preceding mine, we'll liven things up a little bit. And I have 30 minutes to go through my content. I'm going to do so methodically, but at a pace to where you'll be able to learn and understand and digest some of the things I'm talking about. And then at the end, you can find me in the corner over by the water cooler if you have any questions. I'll be glad to address them. And then also my contact information is up here on the screen now, and I'll also have it displayed on the screen at the end so you can jot it down, send me an email, find me on Twitter, find me wherever. I'll be glad to answer questions or take in some of your feedback and learn from you and so on. But some of the things we're going to talk about here today is the consumer journey in a cross-channel world. And I have several different examples around what that means. And it's something all of us can relate to because all of us in one fashion or another are consumers. But for me, I wear two hats. I'm also a marketer. And what's interesting from a marketing perspective is how do we keep up with these consumers? We live in this world where consumers are wildly empowered, where they can engage with a brand whenever, wherever they want. We live in this crazy mobile world, and it's funny because as I'm up here on stage, I see a couple things, two bright lights, and then the glow of everybody's phone on their face, which again is reflective of this mobile world we live in. Something else I'll talk about too are business challenges and trends related to the marketer keeping up with the consumer in a cross-channel world, and how so much of that supporting technology is moving to the cloud or multiple clouds. And then lastly, I'll round out the conversation with what we at Adobe offer organizations and marketers that allow them to not just keep their finger on the pulse of consumers as they engage and interact with the brand, but what they can do with that insight and how they can deliver compelling and beautiful content to those consumers each and every time that they engage. So to set the stage, let's just talk real quick about digital. And it's prevalent, both from a consumer perspective or if you're a marketing practitioner in the crowd, it's prevalent in your life. But just from a consumer perspective, you know this, and it's how it's shaping our shopping experiences, right? How digital shapes how we engage with a brand when we want to purchase something. We have a great amount of technology at our fingertips where we can do research. But there's also a cool enabling digital technology that lends to a better online experience, that lends to a better in-store experience. From an entertainment perspective, I mean, we live in a world to where when you walk into an arena or a stadium and you turn on the mobile app, you can get alerts, you can get updates, you can get reminders, and many, many different ways for you to engage with that brand or that sports team as you're engaged in venue. Or if you're on a trip, or if you're in Las Vegas at a casino, as you wander through the casino, that's again, an opportunity for that marketer or customer service or host person to engage with you in this digital world we live in. From a learning perspective, again, things have changed so much just in the past 3 years and even 1 year. I have a daughter who's in 3rd grade, and she can check a tablet out of her school, bring it home, and do her homework on that tablet. And it's amazing how much digital has impacted her world. And then when it comes to exercising, I'm sure there's at least a quarter, if not a third of us here in this room, myself included, wearing a wearable that tracks our fitness activity and so on. And again, it's a reflection of how digital is changing everything, not just to track, what I'm doing or how many steps I've taken or how many miles I've walked, but it reflects the fact that I can share what I'm doing with my tribe, if you will, or my community, and brag if I have a personal record, or somebody else can do the same with me. And when it comes to traveling, from a business traveling perspective, digital has changed everything, but in such a fantastic way, to where now I have immediate access to information when I want it, when I need it. And it could be me leveraging my mobile app to check on a flight status or to change flights, but it could also be me daydreaming about my next vacation with my family. And then lastly, the way we pay for things is rapidly changing. And look at what digital has done there, where the day and age of our wallet in our back pocket is quickly fading to where now we can pay for everything using our smartphone and apps on that smartphone. But when it comes down to it, it really is all about the customer experience. And how can digital be leveraged to better enhance that customer experience along the way? And a little supporting research, marketers think that customer experience is pretty important too. And what this research shows is just how important it is and how much of a priority it is to better engage with customers. And why engagement is important is it because it lends to loyalty. A loyal customer will spend more money. They'll tell others about it, and so on. So again, that customer experience is closely tied to engagement. And as I go through this presentation, think about the customer experience. Think about how you engage with a brand. Think about, if it was a recent purchase of, let's say, a mountain bike, what went into that whole process? Or if you've begun your holiday shopping already, is that online? Or if you're planning a trip, is that a journey that starts out on your smartphone and then migrates to a tablet and then ultimately ends up on your laptop where you make a purchase? So as I go through some of this dialogue about a journey, think about that in your own world and think about what that means to you. All right, and what I'll do is briefly take you on an example journey for this person named Mark. And just a couple things about this person. He just moved to the Bay Area. He's very interested in outdoor activities like skiing, mountain biking, running, and he's looking for the best deals on gear that's going to support his habits. And as a marketer, what that marketer is going to do is keep up with Mark, considering what we know about Mark and what he wants to be able to do and how he engages and how the marketer can influence that customer experience. But something we know, the expectation for the consumer, especially in this day and age, is all of us to an extent expect instant access and answers. Right? If there is a certain mountain bike or pair of skis that we want to learn a little bit more about or read a review about, we expect to be able to have that kind of information at our fingertips instantly. Something else that influences the consumer, in this case Mark, and his expectations as he interacts with a brand is a consistency in experience. We can admit it when we engage with or at least I can admit it, when I engage with a brand, it certainly helps me if I feel known and I feel appreciated and if I feel there's a consistency in the content that's presented to me. And again, that all ties to helping that consumer feel known and valued. Because if they do feel that way, it lends to a better experience, which lends to engagement, which again is tied to loyalty and ultimately revenue. So just real quickly as I walk you through this particular journey, it could start, and I'm kind of fast forwarding through this journey, because this journey could start way back when, and my friend Jill earlier reminded me of this. The journey could start way back before a brand even knows it's actually Mark. They may know that there's a visitor on their site looking at skis or looking at a mountain bike, and they may know that he lives in the Bay Area and that he is actually he and other demographics associated with him. But what I'm doing is I'm fast forwarding to a point to where the brand actually knows specifically who he is, to where he has made a purchase in the past or he's opted in for receiving a catalog or an email. And so on. And kind of a side note, an anecdote to all of this, I'll be talking a lot about digital and email and the online experience and the Internet of Things and so on. But what's interesting is this kind of offline world has really not gone away. And direct mail is a perfect example. And me personally, I could think of some of the brands that I'm loyal to. I love it when I get their catalog. I might not purchase directly out of that catalog the moment, I start reading it, but it's something I certainly leave around on my coffee table. I'll revisit it, and certainly it influences me each and every time I go online. And what's interesting is that offline world colliding with that online world is so easy to dismiss in this cloud-driven world or in this world of Internet of Things. But again, offline is still there. And what's powerful about that as well is often the attributes associated with the consumer in the offline world make that online profile even that much more powerful. But the idea is this guy, Mark, receives the catalog, and then he goes into the store, and this is a fictitious store for this example called Geometrics, to where he soon engages with an associate on the store floor. And you've probably seen this in like REI or other stores where the associates will have tablets and they use those in a very intelligent way to get more information about the shopper or the consumer they're talking to. And in this case, it's a wonderful example for that associate to ask Mark, hey, we can send you a weekly newsletter or a monthly newsletter that's completely based on your interests. And if you only want it monthly, great. We'll only send it to you monthly. If you want it weekly, we can do that too. And then we can load up that newsletter with interests based on who you are, completely tailored to you. So that's one step in the journey. But it could be he leaves his email address with the associate, but he leaves the store without making a purchase. But the journey continues. Because then Mark does receive his email and a welcome email, and we've all done this when we join a loyalty program. We get a cadence or a sequence of emails where the intention is to get us engaged, right? Because what does engagement lead to? Loyalty, conversions, and revenue. But ideally, the first sequence of emails leads to, among other things, awareness of the products that he's interested in, but also awareness of social media or awareness of a mobile app that he needs to download. Either way, as a result of receiving the email, he clicks through, he goes online, he notices while he's online there's a social media contest that's happening, and he visits the social media site and so on. But ultimately, when he gets back to his laptop again and he logs in, he could log in through social media, which is a great way to drive traffic to the site because it provides very meaningful and relevant information for the marketer to where they can better tailor that online experience using attributes that are known about him, using attributes that are predictive in nature as well, all of which should be used to tailor that online experience. To where ultimately Mark finds his ideal pair of trail running shoes, puts them in his cart, and we've all done this, right? Whether the phone rings or we get an email we have to read, we live in this kind of attention deficit world in a way to where all of us are very easily distracted, and ultimately he closes the browser for the moment. But that also is an opportunity for the marketer to re-engage with him. And I'm not suggesting that a marketer would do this in a creepy way to where they send a remarketing email within milliseconds or seconds of the cart abandonment, but rather using analytics, using data, using profile attributes, using what we not only know but anticipate Mark is likely to do, and send him an intelligent remarketing effort with the idea that we, in that remarketing email, put in recommendations, get him back online, incentivize him to make a purchase to where we can actually increase that order size and take it from there. To where ultimately he goes back online, he takes advantage of the incentives, makes the purchase, and he's on his way. But the journey kind of continues, right? Because if he's downloaded the mobile app or if he's opted in for SMS messages, this can all come into play in that customer journey to better engage with Mark, to get him back online, to get him back into the store. And really that journey is continuous. And the last slide in this journey before I move on to the next section, it could be a few days after he makes that purchase. We're kind of starting that journey all over again to where we're trying to raise awareness and draw interest into other products that he might be interested in. And while I'm leaving it out of this particular slide and this particular journey, this is also a phenomenal opportunity for the marketer to not just send, product-related messages and content or promotions, but it's a great opportunity to send informative messages to where, this company or store is called Geometrics or an outdoor retail store. They could send him tips on on cycling, or he just bought a pair of trail running shoes. They could, in an email, include a map of local trails in his area. What does that do? It increases engagement. And it also does another important thing too. It increases trust in the brand, to where Mark might be more willing to opt in for future types of communications, be more willing to engage in a mobile app, and so on. So at this journey, what is important for the marketer to be able to do is gather what's known about Mark and those little breadcrumbs that he's leaving along the way, and using it in a way to where it's not creepy, but rather adds a service to Mark's life, to where, ultimately it is getting him to purchase the pair of running shoes that he wants and needs and desires, but it's also an opportunity, again, to build that trust. That gets him coming back, that gets him more loyal than other brands, and so on. Because the idea is to get him loyal to where he'll do what? Then go out in social media and tell the world about it, to where the marketer can then go find other people like Mark to bring into the picture. So easier said than done, right? And if you were to map out that journey that I just described, this will look like an eye chart for those of you from the third row on back. But if you were to map out that journey, it would look fairly linear, whereas in reality, a journey is not linear at all. Within a journey, there might be components of it that are linear, like when Mark joined the loyalty program, there might be a sequence of emails that he's going to be targeted with. But in reality, he's wildly empowered. He can engage with that brand whenever, wherever he wants, regardless of the channel. And what's important is for the marketer to be able to not only leverage those attributes, but leverage those interactions in the moment each and every time he engages, whether it's, again, in that kind of linear fashion or dynamically, to where the marketer might not know when he's going to visit the website again, but what they could do is when he's back online, tailor that experience, and at a minimum, maybe have the next best action or offer or content that's most appropriate to him. But easier said than done. Right? Because we live in this world where we're kind of technology crazy. And I recently did some research. I was just very curious into, in a typical marketing shop, how many marketing tools and solutions and platforms are leveraged by the marketer to manage a journey that I walked you through. And the answer is 21-ish. So it's a very high number of different tools. And the problem with that approach is that the different solutions lend to a fragmented data ecosystem, and also lends to a fragmented skill set, to where you have different skill sets throughout the marketing organization that aren't always consistent and coherent with one another, and they often don't even talk to one another. Another challenge is we live in this mobile world. And the reason why that's a challenge is, again, the instant access that all of us have to a brand at any moment. And it's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity, right? It's an opportunity for the marketer to engage with you when you engage with a brand. But the challenge is, how do they provide a compelling and beautiful experience for you that's going to get you to continue on to the next step of the journey? And then what's also important to a marketer is, how do I measure all this? If I'm doing all these activities across the customer journey, where I'm sending emails and I'm driving people online and I'm connecting that with social and connecting that with mobile, how do I measure the effectiveness of all that? And then lastly, the customer journey in and of itself is quite a challenge. In fact, research shows only 10% of companies actually map the content to a customer journey. And what I'm going to do as I go through the rest of this presentation, and I'm keeping my eye on the game clock, is I'm going to go through 3 pillars that enable that cross-channel journey. And this is something we hold very near and dear to us at Adobe, and that we support these different enabling capabilities in the various cloud solutions that we offer. So starting with data, a best practice is obtaining a single view, or creating a single view of the customer, as well as taking a data-driven approach. Notice I didn't say a 360-degree view of a customer. That's an overused cliche in the marketing world. But if you can obtain a single view by collecting those breadcrumbs along the way, that in the example of Mark, that he left throughout that journey, and consolidate that into a view along with his marketing preferences, go a long way in how the marketer can help enhance that customer experience. And also taking a data-driven approach, which is essentially using data to make better decisions, but also using data to personalize each and every interaction. So what this slide depicts is the typical marketing department where I have many different silos that lends to potentially a broken experience as these systems aren't talking to one another. And what this slide depicts is that customer profile. And again, think of that as that single view where you're collecting what attributes you can about a customer, including his preferences, predicted attributes, and so on, and providing that to a marketer to where they have that single view to where they can better leverage it for a personalized, tailored experience. And then leveraging that profile and taking a data-driven approach. And this is just a quick glimpse at what I would call a maturity model when it comes to data-driven marketing. It could start with reporting, and it could start with looking at the performance of different campaigns across different channels. But where it needs to go and where it needs to evolve from is not just understanding, but anticipating. So not just understanding, in the case of the journey, Mark and what he did and where he was in the journey, but it's also anticipating what he's likely to do next. That's the classic data-driven approach. The next tenet, if you will, and it shouldn't be minimized, is content. And a couple best practices, not just creating the beautiful content, but ensure that it's delivered in a consistent manner and in a personalized manner, but then also integrating content into marketing processes. And really what I mean by that is not just having an agency create content and put it into a repository that you can tap into. It's important to have content integrated into the marketing process each step of the way throughout that customer journey. Because if that marketer can deliver a tailored and consistent experience, it lends to engagement. And I've kind of been beating my drum up here about engagement, but research shows that that engaged customer will purchase more, they'll purchase more frequently, they tend to be more loyal, and they'll tell others about it. So if you remember one thing about this presentation, that's it, the importance of engagement. And then I'll just go through this kind of quickly. Also the importance of integrating content. Again, that's the second key ingredient to cross-channel marketing in a cloud-driven world. And what that means is having a centralized repository for assets where all marketers can get access to all assets at any time. And what that does is it accelerates that process of getting that content delivered to the touch points when the customers engage with the different brands. But then also ensuring that content is dynamic in the sense that if it's Mark and he's back and he purchased the trail running shoes, let's not promote trail running shoes, let's promote socks or gear or clothing that goes with the trail running shoes. And the benefit, streamlining the whole content process from creation through the delivery of that content and then sharing the knowledge with those who need to know what works, what didn't. Also accelerating collaboration. You know, with the silos in the marketing department, it's so important for marketers to be able to collaborate with one another, and collaborating amongst content is a very powerful way to do that. And then lastly, having content in central repository just eliminates disparate solutions. Because the idea is to take the art and merge it with the science, if you will. The art on the left-hand side of this slide being delivered across different devices and channels to where it doesn't lose any of its substance after it was created, and it's delivered consistently, and it drives that engagement that you're looking for. And then lastly, again, ensuring that that content is delivered at the right moment to the right person at the right time. And a best practice is to integrate the delivery of that content onto one platform. So what's so common in marketing departments in this day and age is you have one solution for email, another one for mobile, another one for analytics, another one for web personalization. Those are those silos that I was talking about earlier that inhibit that ability to effectively manage that customer journey. And having the integrated delivery capabilities across a solution is a very powerful way to ensure, again, that content is being delivered to the right people at the right time. And then also having a centralized decisioning environment. And what that means is think back to that slide about 20 minutes ago where I had all those zigzags that reflected the customer journey. And there was this series of outbound interactions which represented the welcome email, the remarketing email, and so on. But you also need to be able to, or marketers need to be able to manage that decisioning along with decisioning that goes with inbound interactions. So when I call into the call center, or when Mark calls into the call center and he asks a question about the gear he was looking at, the person he's talking to actually has an idea that, hey, it's Mark. And you can even queue up that customer service rep with a suggested offer or a next best action or a recommended item or something along those lines. It's difficult to coordinate that type of decisioning if different solutions are being used or if different methodologies are being used. And what that lends to is the ability to provide a cohesive experience across all those different channels, but it also gives the marketer the ability to manage decisioning across both outbound and inbound and collaborate with different teams and so on, but then also streamline the way they're getting content out the door and the way they're managing content across different campaigns. And again, what that lends to is a consistent experience for this person, Mark, that I've been talking about thus far in the session. So again, connect the data with the content and the delivery of that content in a centralized environment to drive engagement. All right, so in the last 5 minutes, I'll quickly talk about Adobe. I feel obligated to talk about my employer and what we have to offer the marketer and organizations that help with this challenge or these challenges associated with the customer journey. And for over 30 years, Adobe has been helping organizations engage with consumers, but we've evolved as technology has evolved, right? Because we've gone to this world to where the internet has completely changed. We have different devices, there are different expectations that customers have, and so on. And we've gone through a great deal of transformation ourselves to ensure we're providing solutions for the marketer in an accessible environment that allows them to manage that customer journey in this cross-channel world that we live in. And we have to, right? Because I've talked about mobile and that being a challenge, but it's also an opportunity. I mean, research shows that more of us open emails on a mobile device than a PC. Research also shows that more mobile browsing is done than on a PC, and really, again, that just is reflective of is reflective of mobility in this world we live in, where we expect instant access to anything and everything. But what's important for the marketer is to make sure they deliver a cohesive, compelling experience across different devices. It's also factoring in, not to steal any thunder from the next session, the Internet of Things, or really the Internet of Me, where it's wearables. What does that mean? Just because the marketer now has access to a new data source, should they actually use it? Yes, no, maybe, don't know. That's kind of a to be determined. And then lastly, everything is digital, right? Even content that ends up on the cover of a catalog is at some point digital. And really what that does is it presents opportunities, but it also can make things more complicated to the marketer, because those interactions and the use of that content across all the different channels and devices needs to be personalized. It needs to be relevant, and it needs to be rendered, and this is important, in real time or in the moment. And something we talk a lot about at Adobe is we got the content piece down, right? We have the Creative Cloud that marketers and creative people can leverage to create beautiful and compelling content. That how can I get that to or in front of the consumer each and every time they engage? And often, each and every time they engage is, the term real time kind of drives me nuts, so I kind of break it down into really it's that last millisecond or in the moment of truth. When a consumer logs in or visits the site, how can a decision be made instantly to deliver a compelling and engaging experience? And there's several components that lend to that. First, it's the ability to, in the last millisecond, take all that is known about that consumer, assemble it in a usable way, and then leverage it to understand who they are and predict what they're likely to do next, assemble the content, and then deliver it in the last millisecond to drive engagement. And then just real quickly, think back to that customer journey for a second. I did leave out part of the equation only because I knew I was going to be constrained by time. Part of the equation is when Mark was not known in that customer journey, right? Where he's browsing anonymously across all these different channels and being targeted with display ads. But ultimately, he gave his email to the associate and opted in. What we at Adobe provide is the Adobe Marketing Cloud, which consists of many different solutions that allow the marketer to track that journey from anonymous through known and beyond, leveraging those attributes or the breadcrumbs that a consumer, or in the case of the journey example, Mark, leaves along the way. And what's important to note, and where we really see this world going, is yes, there are 8 different solutions within that marketing cloud, but they're tied together with very powerful services that allow the marketer to unify data and assets across all these different solutions to ensure cohesive delivery of that content in the last millisecond. And really, in the end, what it's doing, the marketing cloud that we have at Adobe alongside the creative cloud is it's marrying that art and the science. And if you think back to the customer journey that I walked you through, or if you think through the customer journey that you can relate to in your mind, it's connecting the art and the science of what a marketer needs to be able to do. And just as a refresher again, the 3 tenets that enable the cross-channel marketing in this cloud-driven world is data. So the ability to not just understand or predict what somebody is likely to do, the content component, ensuring that beautiful and compelling content is delivered consistently across all channels, and then lastly, delivering that content across channels each and every time that a customer engages. And that's it. I'm right on time as expected, and I thank you for your time. And it's great that at a conference like this we're able to bring a lot of people into the room to talk about cross-channel marketing. And I do understand this was the only session going on at this time, but I'm still nonetheless flattered that you were willing to come here and learn about what we have to offer. We don't have enough time for Q&A, but what I'm going to do is just stand over by the water cooler there. If you have some feedback or some follow-up questions or suggestions, I'm all ears, and I look forward to meeting you. Thank you.